Welcome to the Real Estate Show on KMED, the 4th of July weekend of 2016. Pete Belcaster and Joe Brett, the real estate guys, with you. We're both real estate brokers with John L. Scott in Southern Oregon, and we get together with you once a week right here on KMED to talk about all sorts of real estate-related issues and topics and things like that. When today ends 6 years of this, and next week we begin year number 7, if you can believe that, here on KMED. That's a lot of weekends, Joe Brett, that we come out here and talk to folks. And, of course, our goal out of all these shows is we want you to be a smart real estate consumer. And, you know, if you listen to our show, you are, because we've learned so much over these years from great guests.
I was just going to echo that comment that we have learned. It's been to our benefit here. I mean, we've had our licenses a little longer than 6 years, but we've had some people in there really enlightened us and our audience.
Try 9 years. 6
right.
years.
I said we've had our license even longer than the show.
The show, yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
That's actually
but we've learned
true.
more in the last 6 than we did in the first three.
Yeah, combined. Yeah, no kidding out of that. Anyway, today here on the show, Brad Bennington is the CEO of the Southern Oregon Builders Association.
Howdy.
On the Real Estate Show. And what have you been? I mean, I've seen you this past week. It was a busy week. I mean, I was busy myself. Going to the social circuit, here in June, the end of June. But you're going to meetings. You're doing all sorts of things.
Yep.
Why so much? I mean, what's going on that
what's
you're
wrong
so?
with you, Brad?
Why here?
Yeah.
What are you going to?
Well, it's kind of like this. There's so much activity in our industry, and the way it works, there's maybe 3 or 4 things going on. First of all, there's just the market itself. The market's, as you guys know, it's just overheated, right? So there's that. And then the other thing is what is it? It's a political year, right?
So there's that in.
Right. So there's all these big rocks rolling around, and what's going on. And for Pete's sake, we've got Britain leaving the European Union, and that creates all this mayhem in the financial market. And people may not think about it, but what goes on in the financial market kind of affects our industry, because our industry runs on what? It runs on borrowed money, right? And where do you borrow money from? You borrow it from banks. So when something goes on over here that causes these big financial waves to start rolling, then the lenders kind of look at it, and then that kind of has, so there's all that. And then if you're cynical, as some of us tend to be, what you find out is that, during summer, when people are kind of happy and not paying attention, sometimes the government uses that as an opportunity to kind of roll things out, kind of hoping that you'll miss it, kind of hoping that it'll sort of fly under the radar a little bit. And there's that going on. Mm-hmm. So, there's all that. There's the activity in the market. There's marijuana. There's all this stuff. And boy, I think everybody's just pretty busy right now. What do you think?
Well, think about a year ago. I mean, I was just thinking that a year ago we hadn't gone into the recreational marijuana business yet. It was just kind of starting. There was all sorts of issues and concerns how that has gone. We're going to hear from in the future about what certainly Kelly Madding and planning people and the sheriff's got to say about that later on. So a lot has changed. The market has certainly gotten a lot, as you say, how'd you describe it?
Overheated.
Overheated. Certainly more than a year ago than it was in July of last year. No question about that. So there is a lot there, isn't there?
I get calls every day. I got a call from a guy today who just practically begged me for the name of somebody that could come and put some drywall up for him. And I mean, it was a small job. He needed like 10 sheets of drywall. I mean, God bless him. And he says, I've called this guy and I've called that company. And the best that anybody's been able to tell me is that they can get to me in about a month.
Yeah.
And that's what you've been telling us.
Yeah. Well, the truth is that there's just so much construction activity. Our contractors are working as hard as they can. And the one thing, we've talked about this before, but the one thing that nobody saw coming was the incredible demand on construction services that this marijuana industry was going to create.
Yeah. Really? Demand on construction services.
Demand on construction services and materials.
Okay.
And materials. Go into a lumber yard and try to buy some fence boards. I dare you. I dare you.
Fences.
Go try to buy some fence boards.
Because you have to have a fence around your grow, right?
These marijuana cultivators, they're buying fence boards like there's no tomorrow. I mean, they're buying them by the truckload.
Really?
And
Okay.
And the other thing, one of the things that affects what we do is what we call the pace of construction, right? So if you're in residential construction, the pace is kind of phlegmatic, and the reason is that it's the permitting process, right? So first you got to go through planning. So planning. Then you got to go through the permit process. So permit. And then you build, and then you have the inspection process, right? So you build a little bit, and you get an inspection. You build a little bit, you get inspection, and then finally you come to the conclusion. So, you're looking at, let's just take a house. Let's just take a $300,000 house if you can find. Are there any $300,000 houses out
more
there?
of those than
out
than
there,
less
yeah.
than
Few,
that,
yeah. So take a $300,000 house, for instance. By the time, let's just say you got a lot that's ready to build on. By the time you actually start that project, get your paperwork done, and get what we we used to give a C of O, certificate of occupancy, and now it's just your final inspection. When you get your final inspection, you can go ahead and occupy the home. But you're looking, a normal timeline really is about 120 days. That's clipping along pretty good. Sometimes you might be able to do it 90, but a lot of times you go 120 days or more than that. So 4 months to do $300,000 worth of work. Now look at the marijuana industry. Marijuana it's defined as agriculture.
Okay, right.
Trick question.
Okay.
Do you need a building permit to build an ag building?
No. Do you need a building permit to build?
Do you need a building permit to build an agricultural building?
Oh, agricultural building.
The answer is
good question. Apparently not.
The answer is in most cases no.
Yeah. Really? Okay.
Yeah. No. There's some qualifiers in that, and it depends on is it an ag building that's going to be. In other words, if you're going to have workers in there, that's a little bit different. But for most ag buildings in Oregon, you don't need a building permit. So here's a $300,000 house that's going to take you 120 days if you're clipping along pretty good to do it. You can go do $300,000 worth of construction on a farm in 2 weeks. I mean, it's just as fast as you can get out there and get your work in the ground. I mean, you can just go pour concrete, you can build, you can just you can rock and roll.
And are all these people have licenses to do this in this kind of large grows like this that Brad's talking about?
Well, I'd say that's a crapshoot question
that?
there. Come on, I mean, how would you know? I mean, the regulatory effects of this are going to be one of the big challenges as you go forward as to how much, where
how
you're
much
at,
is going on
what's
there?
the zoning, what are the county rules, what are your city rules,
Yes.
and it's a process in the works. Yeah.
Right, and then planning and building are different. So you still have to have planning approval, right? The planning is very important. You can't just go build buildings without making the planning department happy. But once you get planning happy for a lot of these agricultural structures, you don't need a building permit. You can just go rock and roll and build.
So the greenhouses or whatever you're building are just going up like that, and that's what's people are going and working in them. Okay.
Right. So So
there's that many of them. That's what's interesting. I guess that's what's so surprising me.
Right. So here's a market where you've got this really, really active industry that has lots of money behind it. Where these you've got skilled workers, right, which we already have a shortage of. They can go work for this industry at practically an unregulated pace, right? I mean, they can just go. And they can just build.
And it's all cash, isn't it? All cash, isn't it? All this is cash, right?
That I can't speak to.
Okay,
I can't speak to that. Right. But what we do know is there's a lot of money behind this industry pushing it, and there's a lot of demand right now.
Oh yeah.
So as far as construction services, here they are waving their flag up in the air, saying we need all this work done, and we have lots of money. Who wants to come help us?
Mm-hmm. And the guy with the 10 sheets of drywall is going to be waiting a month or more.
Bingo. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, well,
exactly.
Isn't that it? Well, I see that's a change. I guess where the advice probably is you better be aware of these things if you're going to be doing something. Yeah. It's the same way with appraisers. I mean, I was a 6-week appraisal wait recently and try to get a home inspector to come out in the next week or 2 weeks even. It's even longer than that. So it's across the board that's happening this. But the way you describe it, that's kind of really weird.
And that's kind of another pressure on our construction workers, our construction industry, that you've already identified the others, just in the shortage of laborers. Yeah. That puts an additional level of pressure on.
Well, that's what's happening here. Just to show you how the market is so you say overheated, the way Brad describes it. If you're in that $150,000 to $250,000 range in Jackson County, there is a half a month supply of inventory out there for you. And that's where the multiple offers, that's where so much of the activity is taking place right now. The $250,000 to $350,000 range is almost as bad. It's a 0.79 months. Okay, not 0.79, not even a month's supply of inventory in that range. But if you go above that, and this is where people get kind of crazy about things in terms of what they're trying to sell. If you go above that 350 range, the next range, which is like 350 to 500, Joe, it's like you double your chances of not getting a buyer when you go to that price range. That's the difference in it. And then if you go into the price ranges of 750,000 or more, well, you've got more than a year's supply. You see how that goes? So the activity taking place is really in that 150 to 350 range. And if you go above that, again, your chances double that you will not find a buyer compared to those lower snapshots on the market. And that's the same thing with new construction too, because new construction is in that range. Isn't it? I mean,
some is, yeah.
In that 350 and below range. Isn't that what you've been saying? I mean, affordable housing, that's got to be it.
Yeah, we've got builder members that are out there creating products in the 260 and up range. Again, the problem is that the cost of the dirt is going up, right? Okay, so there's still dirt out there that was acquired under favorable circumstances. If you go to Eagle Point, I can show you some homes that are being built that are beautiful new homes that are being built on dirt that was acquired under very, very favorable circumstances. Okay. We are coming to the end of that. We're coming to the end of that.
Does that reflect then the price? Brad, does that reflect the price then of the overall the house?
Of course it does.
Because the dirt, the lot was, say, $49,000 versus now, I guess it would be now it's 69 or 79 or even more than that then. Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. When they bring these new lots in, for instance, anything that you look at that's been brought in or is going to be brought in over the next, let's just say 12 or 24 months, there's going to be a substantial price point adjustment that is absolutely unavoidable. Mm-hmm. And it's going to be interesting to see what that looks like on your end, on the sales end, because right now you can find comps, but when we hit that bench and when we jump that bench, whenever we jump it, you're gonna have a period of time there where you're not going to be able to find comps. Mm-hmm. So then you're going to have to have a discussion. Well, are people going to start bringing in cash to make up the difference? Mm-hmm. And if they do, then you're going to establish the new comp rate that will be, that'll take the step up on that bench, and then the market will take off from there. But as we've said so many times before, in my view, the best value in a home that you can buy today is a brand new home built on one of these pieces of dirt that was purchased under favorable circumstances.
And the price range, the average new price of a new construction, by the way, in Jackson County was $261,000. Right. Yeah, so I mean that's under that 350 range.
Yeah. So some people are worried that we're looking at a bubble, and I can tell you that if there is a bubble, the bubble is not between 250 and 300,000. Yeah. There might be a bubble if you're looking at properties that are $500,000 and up or $1 million and up. There might be a bubble, but there's no bubble at the 250 to 300,000 range. And people that buy property or buy homes in that price range, as time goes on, are going to be in my opinion, are going to be very, very happy they did that.
Go ahead.
And over in Southwest Medford, where I live, there are some really good opportunities in those mid twos, even some a little under that, brand new homes where there is some really good activity going on over there. So folks who are kind of looking for a place to land and looking in that price range, take a good look at Southwest Medford around the new South High School, because there are some opportunities there.
Well, the 250 range is like the kind of the trigger point, isn't it?
That's a brand new home.
Range. I know it's almost a brand new home. Yeah. So they're out there. In fact, you brought on, I think it was 89 new homes sold in that 3-month period that we just completed, Brad. To me, that's a lot. That's on pace for about 1,000 new homes constructed in Jackson County this year.
That's more than we built in 2 years when we started.
2 or 3, 4 years, actually, maybe. Yeah. But I mean, that seems to be a lot. But still, we're still not catching up to the demand. I guess that's the problem.
We're not catching up to demand, and we won't. It's impossible. We can't build fast enough to keep up with demand right now, and we probably won't be able to for at least a few years yet. We just don't have the labor force to do it.
I'm wondering if part of the reason the 250,000 range is so popular. Of course, you've got low interest rates that make it affordable for so many people. Right. And that's because if that starts changing, the game changes. Yeah. I think. Yeah. But
10 years from now, everybody's going to be saying one thing: why didn't we buy more property back in 2016?
We all say that. And you and I, Brad and I, were both at that So Ready annual dinner this last week, and these people are really optimistic people to be around, first of all, which is really kind of fun to be around entrepreneurs like that and people. But they're going to bring more jobs in. They're going to bring more.
They're working on it.
They really are working this. And the way they talk about the valley and the potentials of what they're doing, I was really impressed by that. And if that's the case, you're right, the demand is not going to continue. Now, remember, people we have in our state, 96.1% of the homes in our state are above water now. Remember that. Remember they were all underwater. Now you got equity in your homes at 96% of them. I'm wondering if that is driving this $150,000 to $300,000 range of people moving up. Selling those places now and moving up. Because there's a lot of activity going on in those price ranges as compared to the others. I guess that's the point there.
Well, there was a day when $250,000 was a lot of money for a home, but that's been a long time ago. The reality is that again, California's got 40 million people. We've got 4 million. We have no sales tax.
Yeah,
they're selling their properties. They're coming up here and they're looking at what we have and they're going, "Wow, what a bargain!"
Look around.
Well, write the check.
One of Brad's favorite topics is affordable housing.
Yes,
and so we got a break coming up
housing.
here. We'll get him all ready to talk about that.
He's gonna affordable housing.
We have to hold him down while he talks about it. But anyway, that's coming up.
Be good radio.
It's the Real Estate Show on KMED. We're with Brad Bennington, CEO of the of the Builders Association. We're coming right back to KMED. Hey, right after this. Real Estate Show continues here on KMED, July 4th weekend of 2016. Pete and Joe, the real estate guys, with you. Don't forget, you can catch any of our past shows at realestateshoworegon.com. We're also on YouTube. We had Glenn Cunningham, our CPA, was with us a couple of weeks ago. If you missed that show, talks about real estate and taxes, and we learned a lot about 1031 exchanges. We've seen a whole lot of those going on. Real estate, when you make a transaction, there's a lot of money changes hands, and taxes are kind of go along with that. So, that's a past show. They're all there at realestateshoworegon.com.
And you get that hour with Glenn for free.
That's right.
Tune in and listen because it's very knowledgeable and it's free.
Yeah, when I talk to him,
it
costs not free. More. Yeah. Anyway, that's there as well, the other past shows. Today here on the show, Brad Bennington, the CEO of the Southern Oregon Builders Association, has joined us. You of course,
Howdy.
Brad is also, he's on the Jacksonville City Council, the Jackson County Planning Commission, and
a couple other things
with the builders and all that kind of thing. Let me ask you what affordable housing is. I don't know. I can't remember when the first time I heard about it, Joe. We were in the news business back in the day, when affordable housing became, the word, I guess, or that kind of thing, and I don't know if it's changed much. I mean, I see there's some progress being made, a little here and there, not much. In Medford, they're building that big complex across from the Jackson Education Service District downtown. That's a big place. Yeah. But it's not enough. I know there's veterans housing that people are trying to find and buy. So affordable housing, whatever that means, and people can interpret that different ways.
Yeah.
You interpret it your own kind of way too, don't you? From where your viewpoint that you see this issue, and it has perplexed governments for decades, Brad. Homelessness and the homeless, and how do we do that in towns? And people come up with different solutions. I don't know. I mean, I've heard of tent cities. There's all sorts of things out there. I don't know if any of them work, to be honest with you. I mean, it's one of those. What do you think?
Yeah, if you're me, you're going to go back to about 1982, and we had this guy running the country then named Ron Reagan, and the set of financial circumstances that he inherited from Jimmy Carter were not very, very good. But Ronald Reagan had a great sense of humor, and one of the things that he said, he was being asked about the economy one day, and he says, a recession is when your neighbor loses his job. He says, and a depression is when you lose your job. Yeah. So on this affordable housing deal, if you can afford your home, it might be a little bit of an issue. You might say, well, maybe the property taxes might be a little lower. But the reality is, we have a lot of young people here in Southern Oregon who let's just say you have a husband and wife. They're both working. And they're both making, maybe $12 an hour, right? So together, $24 an hour. But they cannot service the debt on. They can't find a home that they can afford to service the debt on. And part of the reason for that is, and we talked about it a little bit in our last segment, is we have all of our friends from California that are migrating up here, and they're selling their properties in California for a certain amount of money, and they're able to come up here and pay cash or almost cash for a really, really nice home. And have discretionary income left over. And our young people that live here, they can't compete with that. So the threshold of housing just keeps creeping up and up and up and up because the people that are already here, they can't pedal their financial bicycles fast enough to keep up with the people that are moving in.
And I agree with you because I think, in fact, this will be a good point with Jim Remley next week, Joe, is that they said in our meeting this week, the biggest issue now in Jackson County is going to be affordability.
Yeah.
That is overtaking even supply and demand is going to be affordability. And that's exactly what you just said.
And our prices are on the rise.
And they're continuing to go up.
So they do things to the building industry that they don't do to any other industry. For instance, if you want to buy an automobile, you can buy there are cars out there for $1,500. I went and buy a car today that for sale $1,500. You buy a $1,500 car. You can also spend $100,000 on a car. There are cars. You can go down to some of the car lots. You can look. Some of these nice new cars are $60,000-$70,000, and it's who can afford that? Well, the answer is some people can. If you structure the payments right, but you don't have to buy a $50,000 car to get around. You can go buy the $1,500 car. In our industry, so much of what we do is especially in the new construction industry, and I'll just talk about new, right? Talk about the new industry. We are mandated by the government to do X, Y, and Z, and we are not allowed to deviate from it. We absolutely 100%, and we have these people that are building inspectors, and by golly, they make sure we do X, Y, and Z, or we can't get a certificate of occupancy or final inspection on the project that we just built. What we've discussed in one of our previous programs is the fact that the National Association of Home Builders did a very detailed, exhaustive study on the cost of regulatory burden in the United States on the average home. And they found out that the average cost of regulatory burden on a home is $85,000. $85,000 on the average American home. And that's not the bricks, the sticks, and the labor or the dirt. That is paperwork. $85,000.
I could buy a really nice car for that.
Yeah. So when they tell our industry, well, we want you to create affordable housing, we're not the problem here. The sticks cost what they cost. The bricks cost what they cost. The labor in our industry is well below almost any other metric of any other industry that you want to measure. So we just kind of feel that they're beating us up on something that isn't our problem. Government, more than anything else, is the driving force on cost. And if government wants housing to be more affordable, let's have a conversation about some of these regulatory costs and whether they really make sense or not.
Well, I've never seen a regulation that has been rescinded in any of these kind of areas. I don't know if you have, but I wish somebody in our listeners may know that. I've never seen a regulation that has been changed or eliminated.
Never have.
I believe, Brad, those regulation costs have doubled since 2011 now.
Well, isn't there another proposal in Medford?
High 30s?
I know what it was.
Like 2011, you said?
They've gone up. We're in 2016 now, and regulatory costs have gone up 35 or 39% since 2011.
Wow. What was the first thing I read about the Medford Parks Department wanting their the aquatic center, I believe, whatever that is again, which is a great idea, and I hope you get it. But what was the first? It's going to fund it by raising. I think it was 1% of the system's development charges on new construction to pay for it. That's not the way you pay for that thing. Well, I mean, that's a tiny segment of the population ripped out to do that. There's got to be a smarter, better way.
Yeah.
So Governor Kate Brown and House Speaker Tina Kotek in that short session, that 39-day blitz that we went through here a little bit ago, they really beat the holy heck out of us. We had 4 bills, and I don't say that in an unkind way, hopefully, but we had to make some very significant concessions because of some things that were on the table. And what people need to understand is that free housing is not free. Subsidized housing is not free. Anytime you lower the cost of housing over here on the left, maybe, you have to raise it on everybody else that's paying for it. Mm-hmm. So it's a balancing act, right? And there's no free lunch here. So, for instance, we were talking about the fact that the Portland City Council just voted in yesterday a 1%, basically a fee or a tax on all new commercial construction in the city of Portland, which they're going to purpose toward, in close quote, affordable housing.
So we're going to use commercial sales to fund affordable housing for homeless in Portland. Okay.
Right. So the Portland City Council just said, you know what, we're compassionate, we're kind, and so we're gonna soak those rich commercial people.
We are Portlandia.
We're gonna. So you think, well, it's
that's
only
on top of this. What is it? IP28. This.
IP28. We're going to get to vote on that.
Yeah, this big vote thing that you're going to have in November about raising taxes on corporate Oregon, I guess, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
What's so funny about that? They've already got it spent.
Yeah.
Yes.
Have you seen that? Have you seen that? Kate Brown and Tina Kotek and the Democrats, seriously. It's going to be like $3.8 billion or something like that, new revenue. They've already got
and
it
they're
divided
hiding
up.
in the shadows
It's so shameful.
with taking no stance one way or the other on behalf of businesses, and they're just waiting, licking their chops to spend that money.
So they want to spend it.
Okay, guys, we can't get political here. Come on.
Guys do.
Yeah, we sure can. It's our show.
Well, actually, you can. It is your show. It is your show.
It doesn't happen often, but it's just anyway.
But anyway, so the four bills that we got through in the last legislative session, one of the things that we had to agree to was it's called a construction excise.
You're going to have to hold that in just a minute, okay? Because
and we'll tell you,
bills.
We'll tell your readers how government is already increasing your cost in a way you didn't even know about.
I can imagine that.
Really depressing me today. Thanks, Brett.
Yeah. You're welcome.
Real Estate Show continues here on KMED. We're with Brad Bennington of the Home Builders Association here in Jackson County. Coming right back to the Real Estate Show and KMED right after this. Real Estate Show continues here on KMED. July 4th weekend. Pete Belcaster and Joe Brett, the real estate guys, with you. Hope you're going to have a terrific 4th of July weekend wherever you're heading to. The mountains would be a good place to be cool. The coast would be nice. It's in the 50s or 60s over there. I like that.
Be safe and be sane, and let's all get together on the other side.
What are you going to do on the 4th?
I'm laying pretty low,
Are
actually. I'm going to grandkids barbecue.
I got to
fireworks in the street.
Be in the 4th of July parade in Ashland, the Rotary Club of Ashland.
You
75th.
like that, though.
It's our 75th anniversary, and so, oh my goodness.
Pete likes parades, by the way.
It's turned into quite a thing. I mean, wait till you see what we come down the street with on Monday. It's going to be great.
Hey, and if folks want to see the Ashland 4th of July parade, can't be there live. It streams live at rvtv.scu.edu and live on Charter Cable and AFN on Channel 180 and Channel 9.
Yeah, absolutely. So it'll be Monday. Anyway, hope you have a good weekend. We're with Brad Bennington, the CEO of the Southern Oregon Builders Association, here on the Real Estate Show next Saturday. Jim Remley, the managing principal broker at John L. Scott, will be here as week off. We have our birthday party, our seventh birthday party here on the Real Estate Show. Started back in 2009, and here we are, midway through 2016.
We're going to have a limo for Mr. Remley. We're going to have hors d'oeuvres and things in the studio, and probably not. Actually, it's radio, so we'll say that. People can't really see.
And you really can't see. We can munch and say, oh, it's so good. That's right. Anyway, Brad's here. Before we at that break, that you were talking about some of those bills that the Builders Association were just steamrolled over by the legislature.
So
right. Yeah. So I mean, here's what your listeners would be interested in is that the people that are on our side of the fence, the people that are actually providing the services and the products to build homes, we run very, very efficiently. And the problem is that government, especially our government here in Oregon, really just has a never-ending appetite for more fees and more regulatory overburden, and that's the problem. You know, freedom isn't. I'm here at 4th of July weekend. Freedom isn't free, and folks, free housing isn't free either. There is no free lunch anywhere. So when they charge us more fees and regulatory overburden over here, they have to come out somewhere else. So this is, if you want to know why housing is so expensive, it's because we have compliance and rules and laws. Oregon is. We've got a lot of builders that will tell you that Oregon is the most regulated state for construction in the entire United States, and it's my opinion that's probably true.
It's probably
so.
True.
If we want to have affordable housing, let's have a discussion about how many of these regulations we really need.
And it's interesting that City Council of Portland, the city with the most inflated property values in the nation for the 7th month in a row. I mean, the leading market in the nation. They're just gorging themselves on their real estate up there, and
well, they have a one.
So how can we tag on some regulatory fees to live our dreams?
Exactly, and a good example, the article in the Mail Tribune today about IP28, this ridiculous tax on industry. They say, hey, this is great. This IP28 is going to create 36,000 new jobs in Oregon. Well, they're government jobs. Right, and it's going to cost 26,000 private sector jobs. So what I would ask your listeners is, does anybody in Oregon really think we need to hire 36,000 new government workers, and it's going to cost 26,000 currently employed Oregonians to lose their job? Does anybody think that's really a good idea?
And if I'm new commercial construction, I'm not coming to Portland where I have to pay that 1%. Exactly. We're going to be in the suburbs somewhere. Right? And in fact, I'm not coming to Oregon. If I pay 28 passes, I'm going far
I was going to say,
away.
who's coming here if I pay 28 passes?
No new businesses are coming.
No, you have to, even though you're a C corporation and millions of dollars in sales, no one's going to come here and invest here. I agree with that. So they're going to be kind of crazy. Okay.
Yeah. So how much time do we have?
Well, it's going pretty fast.
Okay.
Here.
So Southern Oregon, beautiful place. Cost of property is going up. Cost of housing is going to have to go up. Get a realtor, get a contractor, build now, buy now. Do not waste time. Do not equivocate. Get out there and buy something you're going to wish you would have otherwise.
Mm-hmm. I think that's absolutely true.
2 years from now, there are going to be new regulations on your home building. It's going to drive your costs up further.
Well, look, we'll see. We'll see how this goes. This, by the way, is Brad's final show with us for a while.
Yes.
From the Southern Oregon Builders Association, and we'll have Brad back on different times during the year, especially when your big events come up in September and the home tour, and in February.
Tour of homes in September.
Yeah,
the largest new home event in Southern Oregon.
You're doing that well. I was just going to say, how much, since you've been there, how much your association has changed, and how much more visible you are, how much. We learn about that industry because it's such a driving force, isn't it? I mean, it really is, and you can't be hidden in the shadows.
We're really going to miss your information and your organization because it's such vital information that you bring to the table. And I think you're talking to the audience that you couldn't have a better media audience out there to talk to.
Well,
we've done some good things together.
Well, when you started, the membership was down. You were in a recession. There was no building.
Yeah.
And just listening to you the last year or so, how much that has changed. I mean, it's. I'm totally convinced. I'm the big skeptic here. It really is overheated, is what you say. Whatever the market is, your area, the building area, has certainly.
I think
really there.
Our building association has really responded to the times and the needs.
Well, I'll tell you, God's been good to us. We've got the nicest people I think you'll ever meet are in the building industry. They're kind. They've got big hearts. They love their community. And no other industry does for their community what our industry does. Let me just give you an example real quick. We have one of our members, just one, that has 300 homes right now, and either in planning or development or construction. In this case, what does that mean? Let's take 300 homes. Let's say they're $300,000 each, right? That 300 homes, that's $90 million, right? Mm-hmm. Now, that's the net. But our industry is unlike any other industry. We have a 5-to-1 positive ripple effect on the community over 5 years. So that $90 million of home construction is actually $450 million of financial get up and go to our community. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's over $100 million more than our entire county budget for a year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So this industry, the construction industry, aside from just having wonderful people in it, is absolutely critical to the health of our local economy.
Mm-hmm. And we've met
quit picking on them.
Yeah.
So quit picking on us. Please.
And we've met some really cool young builders who are part of the Builders
We're leading
Association.
This resurgence with the association.
The next generation builders here. And what I've been impressed
Wonderful
with them
people.
is that they're really community minded. I mean, what they're doing, and they're doing things on their own. They're using their own money, investing it back in with multiplexes or whatever they're building. Some of these guys have told us. So they're an impressive group.
And when they
put their hammers
and saws down, they're still working hard after hours.
The biggest problem
in efforts to benefit our community.
The biggest problem still seems to be we don't have enough skilled labor to help the trades here. And I hope RCC with their new bond is going to hopefully help some of that. I'm really hoping there, because we can't go on without the skilled labor. And if we're going to build 1,000 to 1,200 new constructions a year just in homes, not in the commercial stuff here, then we don't have it. We still don't have enough of those construction. And you're going to have home inspectors or guys busy. They can't. There's too many waits, things like that. Well, look, Brad, we've enjoyed so much having you.
You guys are great here. You guys are great.
Come back and visit with us, okay? And
we've done good
stuff. And don't forget Redemption Ridge. Redemption Ridge rescues and rehabilitates young women. We're very close to getting their Grace House finished.
All right, that'll do it for the Real Estate Show. Happy 4th of July for Pete and Joe. Have a great weekend, everybody, and God bless.
You've been listening to The Real Estate Show on KMED AM and FM radio, presented by John L. Scott Real Estate of Southern Oregon, along with All Cities Property Management, the Home Builders Association of Jackson County, Ditech Mortgage, the Jackson Soil and Water Conservation District, and the Rogue Valley Association of Realtors. For guest information or to watch a past show, visit us online at realestateshoworegon.com. Join us again next weekend for Southern Oregon's one and only Real Estate Show on KMED.